Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. Hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice weekend. Oh my goodness, it's crazy times we live in. So what's happening tonight? Well, I'm going to talk a bit about what's happening in Iran, of course. Up and down, up and down. It's really difficult to keep track of all of this because the oil price, of course, as we saw, spiked. Then it seems somebody from the Trump administration, the energy secretary, put out a statement saying that we're actually going to escort these tankers through the strait and they're going to be protected. So the price of oil dropped, and then he deleted the message, deleted the tweet or whatever it was, and now the price of oil has jumped up again. Now it seems I had put out a video recently where I'd said that I believe the oil price had dropped. Also, another reason for that drop was because of what Donald Trump was saying about he's going to end this war. But it seems more a case that the strategic reserve there's a plan to open the US strategic reserve, which would free up the US to access oil. But that's a short-term thing. So while it may help bring down the price of oil a little bit in the short term, when that runs out and the Saudis and Bahrain are not pumping oil, then it's likely that the price will jump back up again. So we could end up seeing something like $200 a barrel oil, which of course is so important for the world economy and will mean we're going to see a spike in the price of everything, unfortunately. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you're probably getting enough of that already. Good evening, Badasamata, great to see you. Bill is on. Chatty, great to see you. Great to talk to you again. Mandy is here. Sarah Davies, great to see you. Bill Silver, Indy, Duck Mel, great to have you on. I see Regan Elite is here. Great to see you once again, Regan Elite. I need to reach out to you and we need to do a live stream together at some stage. Hope you're all very well, and greetings to everyone as you're popping on. So as I said, we're going to talk about Iran. We're going to talk a bit about HMS Dragon. It's swooping over towards the Mediterranean, I believe, as we speak. Jury trials, there was a vote in Parliament, but it's looking like the government may end up being forced into a U-turn, but we'll see about that in just a moment. And of course, the economy. But I want to start off with this story here, which is absolutely insane. Beth Rigby from Sky News, let me bring up the screen a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. So Beth Rigby of Sky News went down to the Reform Refuel publicity stunt. And that's what it was. It was a publicity stunt. Now, let me start off by first of all saying Nigel Farage and Reform are absolutely amazing when it comes to political stunts. They're really good at this. We can criticize them for everything, but we can't criticize them for their political stunts. And they know how to get around the law. And of course, when it comes to reform, it's better to apologize than to ask for permission. So it's likely that they've broken some rules here, but they know that they're outside an electoral. They're outside the scope of electoral campaign, so they're able to do stuff like this. So what happened? Well, let's have a listen to what Beth Rigby had to say.
So we didn't know what we were expecting when we were told to come here to Derbyshire, but this is a Reform refuel petrol station, and for one day only they're cutting fuel prices 25 pence off. You see it there?
Okay, so what did Farage do? He, it seems, took control of a petrol station and put up some fake prices, it seems. I don't know whether they actually lowered the price, whether they were actually covering the cost. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's just a publicity stunt. So what they did was, we're going to cut the price of fuel. We're going to undo the levy, the energy levy, and we're going to be, you should vote for us. Now, thankfully, Farage was asked by Beth Rigby, Sky News, about council tax. Nigel Farage, saying, vote for us and we'll reduce your fuel levy. But also he said, vote for us because we'll reduce or freeze your council tax, which of course was a lie. Now Farage tried to get out of that by saying, no, that was somebody else. What about the Tories? They also said that they would reduce it. So of course he was trying to deflect. But the big problem here is Max and Davey, what a prospect. Yes, I have to get on with Indie Truck Davey, speak about what's happening in Scotland. As we get close to the elections as well, it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say. I just need to get myself organized. I'm terrible at organizing. But just back to this for a moment. Farage is really good at getting the media's attention. And the media love Farage. Why is Beth Rigby there? It's to promote Nigel Farage. And of course, it benefits the journalists because they get a scoop. So Farage knows how to manipulate the media. Unfortunately, the media don't do a very good job of holding him to account. Now, Beth Rigby did ask him some difficult questions, and he lost his rag. He started shouting at her. And I covered that in a previous video. But I'm almost getting the impression that the media want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister. They want him in number 10 because it would be great for ratings. So they're helping him along. There are a few journalists out there who will try and grill him, hold him to account, but the vast majority are just cheering him on, it seems. And was it necessary to go down to this place and film this publicity stunt? Because if the media didn't turn up, Nigel Farage wouldn't have been able to sell his snake oil. And this is a scam, of course. He can't sell oil at this price. And if he is, he's doing it for just one day just to make the government look bad. But it's a really good way of manipulating the media, using the media to your advantage. Farage is great at doing it. He seems to be the only one who's good at doing it. Maybe Ed Davey somewhat, but that was during the election campaign. You need to be doing it all the time. Farage doesn't have anything else to do. It's like he doesn't spend time in Clacton. He's supposed to be representing his constituents, but he doesn't give a crap about them. He spends more time in the United States than he does in his constituency. And he knows how to use the media because he has worked with the media for so long. Farage was lying in that interview. Of course he was. His lips were moving. Ratings, Max. It's all about ratings. Yes. And you've actually proved my point. If we look at the 1.5 million views on this video. 1.5 million views. Benefits the media outlet. They get lots of views. And it benefits Nigel Farage because he's able to sell his snake oil. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, let's move on. I want to just show you this clip. This is on the opposite end of the scale. So Nigel Farage, the charlatan. Here is Andy Burnham. Well, saying something that's probably a little bit uncomfortable for the king.
Our head of state, the King, does a remarkable job representing Britain abroad and here at home. And I'm sure we all feel very proud.
Duchy of Lancaster, as you say, own most of that site. They're saying they'll give the land to the council, which sounds good, but in fact that means they're passing the buck to the taxpayer.
I don't think that is an acceptable response. A landowner has responsibility for the decent upkeep of their land, and that doesn't kind of stop applying just because it's the duchy. We need to see a different approach. There's ancient kind of laws in force in this part of the world where if people die without a will, then that money goes to the duchy. Well, how about using some of that money for a purpose that would really benefit our communities? And I won't accept that as an answer from the duchy. We need a better one.
Our head of
And there we have it. See, the Duchy of Lancaster is, of course, the king. The king. So there's a minister for the Duchy of Lancaster who is responsible for making sure that the king gets his money. The king owns a huge tracts of land, huge amounts of property, and of course he has to be held responsible for for the upkeep of that land. The king makes a huge amount of money apart from the salary of being a king. That's really important to remember. So it's great that Andy Burnham is pushing back on this, saying, even if you're the king, you have to take responsibility for your land. You have to maintain. And what was the problem here, of course, was massive amount of dumping taking place on this land. Medieval crap, yes, it is. The idea that if your house, I don't know if this is true, but if Andy Burnham is saying it, I presume it is. So if you if you die and if you haven't written a will, the property doesn't go to the state, it goes to the Duchy of Lancaster. So the king gets people's homes if they die without a will. If the I wonder who's the better bodyguard, Alistair or Violet? I'm not sure what that's about. Any wills or estate will go unclaimed, go to the royals. Isn't that great? Wonderful to be a royal. You're just hoping, please don't have a will. Please don't have a will. I'm surprised they don't put out some sort of advertising campaign telling people, don't bother leaving a will. What's the point in doing it? It'll be fine. You know, wills, it's depressing. Don't be talking about a will. It's depressing. That's probably what they're saying. That's probably what they're thinking. I don't know if they're actually saying it. Okay, guys, so let's move on. Of course, the big story this week and probably for the next 6 months, of course, is Iran. Now, this is just insane. So there was the idea that Donald Trump would protect ships in the Strait of Hormuz, but now it seems the Iranians are going to mine it, which means that no ships will pass. And if no ships are passing, it means no oil is coming out. No oil or gas is coming out. I think, yeah, oil and gas coming out. And this will drive up the cost of living. And what is the solution? Well, we don't have a solution.
Iran has begun laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. This is according to two people familiar with the matter. It's another major complication as the world's top oil exporter warns there could be, quote, catastrophic consequences for oil markets if the conflict keeps disrupting ship and oil tanker traffic through the strait. He says beyond upending shipping and insurance, the ongoing disruption could snowball, threatening aviation, agriculture, and other industries. A short time ago, the White House repeated President Trump's promise to provide government-backed insurance as well as naval escort.
Like Donald Trump is promising insurance. Donald Trump, pay me a certain amount of money and I will guarantee your safe passage. Pay me. Okay. Of course, he sells it as the United States, but of course it's to Donald Trump. He's always on a grift. UBI, what's that, Max? Oh, naughty. So UBI, Universal Basic Income, for anyone who doesn't know. And this is the way we're going. I'm going to get to it later. Don't worry, I promise. There's a story about AI, which was finally brought up in the House of Commons. So I'll get to that a little bit later. And I promise I will talk about a Universal Basic Income. He lied. Interstate... Estates don't go to the crown, but if surviving relatives can't be found, only if they cannot be found. Okay. How much work do they do to find a surviving relative?
It's to keep tankers moving. So far, those shipping companies are resisting traveling through the region while the fighting goes on.
Of course they are. They're not going to go into a war zone. They'd be insane. Like, who wants to go in a ship in a war zone? Okay, so, and if there's the idea that this strait is going to be mined, then the possibility you'd need the US Navy to go in there to remove the mines and guarantee that the mines have been removed. And that's going to take time, especially as if they try to move ships into that area, they're going to be attacked. And you're going to see massive losses. This situation is getting worse by the moment. More on this.
He's the second son of the supreme leader that was killed by the US-Israeli strikes. He is not very well known because he's never held public office, and he's never given any formal speeches, for example. So we don't know a lot about his individual ideas and perspectives and opinions. What we do know is that he's worked for his father for a long time, since 1997, in his kind of office. Kind of think of him as a sort of chief of staff or a deputy chief of staff to his father. So we know that he is probably quite aligned with his father's ideas.
Wonderful. So the old guy, so the dead guy has been replaced with a live guy, and the live guy is pretty much like the dead guy.
He really is the continuity candidate for Iran. And the other thing that we know about him is that he is quite closely aligned with the security structures and powers within Iran. So he's supposed to have a very close relationship with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and that's thought to have come out from his experience of having service within the IRGC during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s.
Isn't he the ultimate Nepo baby? I mean, I understand that the position of Supreme Leader isn't hereditary. On that basis, might there be criticism of him?
I think that has always been one of the main concerns since he's been a contender for this position. I mean, ultimately, in 1979, one of the issues of the revolution was to overthrow the Shah and his legacy, and that there was no longer going to be this kind of dynastic process. Obviously, this completely counteracts that idea.
Although it's not like the people of Iran have any choice here. They just have to grin and bear it, because that's the reality on the ground. Something's happened to my software. What the heck? Okay, that's weird. Anyway, hi Max. Will Nadia Withom, I think her name is, defect to the Greens? No, I don't think we're going to see any defections to the Greens for some time. It could happen in the future, but I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening now. It could happen after the May elections, but I think you're going to have to see some. Maybe if they win another by-election, then we could see some people defect from the Greens. But I think at the moment we're not going to see it, especially if there's going to be a change after the May election. So if Starmer is removed, then there's a likelihood that the next person coming in could rally the troops in a sense, or unite the party. So there'd be no need for somebody to defect. Professor Yang said the human race is doomed. Because of this, because of what's happening in Iran, or for other reasons? I will mention you in my will, Max. not leave you anything, just mention. Thanks for that. Thanks, Peter. Freckle Pony, thank you so much for that super chat. The Ayatollah, yeah, this would happen. This would happen. Thanks for that. Yes, you were right. The Greens are the best bet in England. Lib Dems is if needed, but it's a two-horse race. This two-horse race needs to end. Yes. Interesting that Reform have now come out against proportional representation. Shock, surprise there. Is the continuity Iran, not real Iran? Maybe he's a sticky official Iran or penny provisional Iran. That's it. Yeah, what's happening in Iran? Yeah, exactly, what's happening in Iran? So it's difficult to keep track of everything because it's all, every moment something is changing. And here's another story that involves some sort of change taking place in Iran.
To our allies.
Yeah, so this is Lindsey Graham, who is a US Senator and with the Republican Party, obviously, and he's a huge fan of Donald Trump. But have a listen to what he had to say about sending people from his constituency or his state to Iran.
Step up, get our air bases out of Spain. They're not reliable. Move all those airplanes to a country that would let us use them when we're threatened by a regime like Iran. To our friends in Spain, man, you have lost your way. I don't want to do business with you anymore.
It's like Spain stands up to Trump and they're like, okay, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. Spain doesn't want to become a target. It's like, hey, if you want to get involved in wars illegally, we don't want you. You go ahead, but you're not using our bases.
I want our air bases out of Spain into a country.
Like, why do you think Saudi Arabia has been attacked. Why do you think Bahrain has been attacked? Why do you think Dubai has been attacked? Because of the American influence or because they have bases there? It's the bases generally that's been attacked first, and then of course the infrastructure.
That will let us use them. To our Arab friends, I've tried to help you construct a new Mideast. You need to up your game here.
They need to up their game. The Arabs need to up their game. What the heck does that mean? They need to up their game. They need to throw more troops into the meat grinder. You know, hey, we in Israel started this, but hey, you guys need to make some sacrifices as well.
I can't go to South Carolina and say we're fighting and you won't publicly fight. What you're doing behind the scenes, that has to stop. The double dealing of the Arab world when it comes to this stuff needs to end. I go back to South Carolina, I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast are...
So now he's going back to his constituency and he's telling his constituents, you need to go and fight in Iran. You need to fight for Epstein. You need to fight for Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs a distraction at the moment. You know, his polling's not good. You need to go and die in Iran. For what? Well, because we said so. You know, at least when it came to Vietnam, there was some sort of goal. It was like, we need to stop communism, the spread of communism. That was the, you know... What was it? In every South Vietnamese, there was an American trying to get out. And I think that was one of the lines that they had. Or maybe it was a little bit less politically correct than that. But that was generally the feeling. Now what is it? Well, it started out as we just need to remove the Ayatollah. Then he was removed, but then they had another one. Then they said, we're going to help the Iranian people rise up against the regime. Then that's sort of fallen by the wayside. Then it was, we need to stop them having nuclear weapons. But then they said, we already destroyed them last year. But they were 5 minutes away from launching. Wonder if Barron has inherited Pop's bone spurs. Of course he has. It's genetic. You won't see anyone from any senator. Look, there was talk about a draft in the US, but I don't see that happening. Not yet, anyway. Breaking news, Barron Trump has just been diagnosed with severe bone spurs. Do you think Barron Trump will be diagnosed? As we speak, he's been diagnosed. Donald Trump's own private physician is diagnosing him as we speak.
Friends in Saudi Arabia and other places step forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America. I'm publicly involved in bringing this regime down.
Yeah, we want to be hit by intercontinental missiles. No, ballistic missiles, I should say. We want to be hit by ballistic missiles, so we want to get involved too. We want to get involved in a war that doesn't have a plan, that the president is saying has just begun, but at the same time has said it's finished. Like, they keep saying, yeah, you need to get involved. But allegedly, Donald Trump has said that the war is over. So why would Spain or other countries, the Arab nations, why would they be getting involved if Donald Trump said it's already over? And why would Lindsey Graham be telling people in his constituency, you need to get ready to go to war, when Donald Trump has said it's over? It's just more insanity layered upon more insanity. Now, I've already covered that guy. Hold on. Don't know what that appeared there for. There's another story I wanted to cover here related to... Unless it's the same one again, please no. No, this is... Wait till you hear this. This is Trump talking about how it's all a bit of fun.
The Navy is gone. It's all lying at the bottom of the ocean. 46 ships. Can you believe it? In fact, I got a little upset with our people. I said, what quality of ship? Excellent, sir. Top of the line. I said, why did we just capture the ship? We could have used it. Why did we sink them? They said, it's more fun to sink them. I said, they like sinking them better. They say it's safer to sink them. I guess it's probably true.
I don't know, how do you even respond to something like this? They say it's more fun to sink them. Maybe they actually said that to Trump. That's how terrible the situation has become. Why didn't you capture them? Like, it's very difficult to capture a ship, okay? Especially if you're in a submarine. Generally, you know, I don't know. I'm not a military strategist, but generally you don't capture ships, you sink them, because if you try and capture them, they'll shoot back. You know, they don't really have somewhere else to go. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't care unless it's impacting him. He doesn't care. He was asked about how many. His press secretary was asked how many American soldiers have been killed so far, and she said it's about 150. Ballpark figure 150. You know, Trump has demonstrated contempt for British soldiers. Remember when he was talking about how, they hold back, you know, the other NATO members. And then when he sort of changed his tune a little bit when it came to British soldiers because somebody told him to. We haven't heard any criticism directed at him since then from the likes of GB News or Nigel Farage or the Conservatives even. You know, Kemi Badenoch, what she said about that. Surely she should have sided with the British troops and said, how dare this guy insult our soldiers? But she went very quiet. She's been very quiet about it. Can you imagine if Keir Starmer had said something like that? He wouldn't be allowed to live it down. It would follow him to the grave. But if Donald Trump does it, well, you know, it was unfortunate what he said. And he has nothing but contempt for NATO allies. Look at it, he's demonstrating contempt, or his administration is contempt for American soldiers. How many have lost their lives? About 150. About. You know, you're supposed to have respect. I honestly don't know why the American soldiers don't rebel. Honestly, I don't know why they don't do that. I'm not saying that they should. You know, I'm not saying that's... But aren't they supposed to uphold the Constitution? This guy is using the Constitution like toilet paper. Are they, you know... I don't know. I don't know, honestly know what's going through people's minds. Not in public, at least. Is there anything to be said for offering him another Peace Prize? Yeah, so we can nick it off someone and give it to him. Whoever thought about Thatcher, at least, whatever you thought about Thatcher, at least she never joked about sinking the General Brigado. No. Or if they did, it was behind closed doors, but not like this. Like a press conference. Like, we live in such weird times. Not interesting times, weird times. Just one more thing on this, on Iran. Once again, as I mentioned, when it comes to the oil price goes up because obviously it's a dangerous situation. The Trump administration says everything is fine, the price goes down, and then actually we were joking, the price goes back up again. So somebody's making a lot of money. I can guarantee you somebody's making a huge amount of money as a result of all of this. Anyway, so as we heard earlier in the week, HMS Dragon was not ready to go to the Mediterranean. Now it is, it seems, and it's on its way. Now, what was the problem here? The problem was, of course, this ship was not prepared for this type of action. It was being it was going through maintenance for another type of intervention. But the problem here is that Donald Trump has said it's all over. So why is HMS Dragon going to the Mediterranean? Okay, this video has no sound. So that's just a picture of the ship. Okay. So it says HMS Dragon has begun its journey to the to Eastern Mediterranean to join the UK's defensive operations in the region. The Type 45 destroyer left its docks in Portsmouth on Tuesday afternoon, having only recently come out of maintenance. It will be the UK's first and only warship in the region when it arrives in about a week. Like, it's important that this ship was ready to go, because a lot of the Tories and the people on the right were saying, no, it should have been sent there immediately. Yes, but if it wasn't, like, it could have broke down. That would be extremely embarrassing, wouldn't it? If it had broke down on the way. Now, it still could break down on the way, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it was not maintained properly, it could break down. It comes hours after the government placed a naval support ship, the RFA Lime Bay, on heightened readiness to be sent to support British nationals in the Middle East if needed. HMS Dragon's primary role will be protecting RAF Akruti, which was hit by Iranian made drone earlier this month. This month, we're still talking as if it's it's meant to be a 3-day special military operation, but we're still talking about this month. The strike was said to have caused minimal damage in a hangar on the base. Defense Secretary John Healey told the House of Commons on Monday that the drone had come from Lebanon or Iraq, which is, of course, what many people were saying, because it was originally thought, it was coming from Iran, but it would take hours for it to come from Iran. So it's more likely it came from Iraq or Lebanon. So an Iranian proxy decided to respond. But they responded, I presume, because of Keir Starmer saying we're going to support the Americans. So it's a result of supporting the Americans. So when Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch say, we should be supporting them more, then they'd be happy to see more drone attacks, because that's the consequence of that. Now, one thing is defending British assets in the region, but another is getting involved. And these people want in the UK to be more involved. You don't see Nigel Farage or Nigel Farage's children getting ready, booting up to go to fight in Iran, or Kemi Badenoch or her family getting ready to fight in Iran. No, there's always somebody else's kids that will be sent. First it's all the poorest. The poorest kids go first, and then when it gets to the middle class or the rich, they say, hey, we need to stop this war. We've been down this road before. Hi, Rosemary. HMS Dragon, aka HMS Widdicombe. Yes. Kemi says, why are we just hanging around? Yes. Insulting the troops once again. Yeah, the pilots were just hanging around. Like, she didn't know what was going on. It's not like she said, look, they were not engaging and that was a problem. No, she didn't know. She was like, I didn't actually know what they were doing. What you're seeing when it comes to Kemi Badenoch is the Tories are trying to prop her up. They say, look how great she is at PMQs. And then if you look at how the Tories do in elections, it's terrible. Look at the last by-election. They didn't even win back they lost their deposit at the last by-election. Worst result for the Tories ever. But allegedly, Kemi Badenoch is going from strength to strength. She's not carrying her party, she is. Is that ship heading towards Cyprus? It is indeed. Hetzef will get sacked if the polls turn against him. Yeah, I think there'll be a number of people who will be blamed for this. Hetzef will probably be replaced. We've already seen it with ICE. So you notice where ICE became extremely unpopular and it was harming Donald Trump. What did Trump do? He kicked out the people responsible, replaced them with other sycophants. So it's likely that if this starts to harm Donald Trump, or Donald Trump starts to get blamed, he'll say, it's not my fault to get rid of Pete Hetzef. And I hope they do, because I hate the guy. He's a disgraceful individual. And I don't know if there's anyone worse than him. There's probably a long list of people who are worse. But my goodness, he's not just pathetic. He's proud of his arrogance, proud of his ignorance. He's arrogant in his ignorance. That's what I wanted to say. Trump will blame Netanyahu and Israel next week. I don't think he'll do that. They've been angry with the Israelis when it came to the strikes carried out in Iran on oil fields or on refineries. So I think there is a brewing hatred or anger towards the Israelis, but whether it'll come out and whether Trump will blame them, I don't think he'd go that far. He would prefer to blame somebody within his administration, because then he can just sack them. He can't sack Netanyahu. That's the problem. He's already telling off Israel for attacking the oil refineries. I don't know if he'll go as far as to criticize Netanyahu. Do you remember back, was it last year, when the Trump administration lost their rag with Netanyahu when it came to bombing the the embassy, was it the building? There was a building in Doha, and they attacked that building where they thought there was Hamas operatives there, and this really rubbed the Trump administration the wrong way, and they were like, hey, okay, now we're going to back this idea of peace, whatever it meant. Once again, as I mentioned before, once it's off the news, it's Trump, people think it's all resolved. The situation in the Middle East is not resolved. Trump has just walked away from it. Watching Lewis Goodall rip Chris Gulp Phillip apart on Sunday was a joy to behold, especially when he asked whether Badenoch should apologise over hanging around comments. Yes, Lewis Goodall is a really good one to follow. If you're not following him on social media, do that. Stephen Miller is worse than Hedseth. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like there's a long list of people who are potentially worse than Hedseth. Although Stephen Miller is not as arrogant as Hedseth. Hedseth is a hothead. Stephen Miller is much cooler, which is probably more dangerous. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story, which of course is jury trials. So the government has said that they need to let them go because there's a waiting list. There's a backlog that needs to be resolved. But I'm not fully buying this. So jury restriction plans clear first hurdle despite Labour dissent. So there was a vote in Parliament about this today. MPs have voted to allow the bill that would curb access to jury trials in England and Wales to progress to the next stage, despite some Labour MPs stating their opposition to the reforms. The Courts and Tribunals Bill passed by 304 to 203, a majority of 101, with 10 Labour MPs rebelling against the government and dozens abstaining. Justice Secretary David Lammy pleaded with the Labour MPs to support his changes to jury trials and other reforms that he argued would reduce the record backlog of cases in Crown Courts. But the reforms and Lammy himself faced a barrage of criticism in emotional speeches, with one Labour MP saying the experience of victims of rape had been weaponised in the debate. One of the major criticisms against this is that it will actually, the problem is not the jury trials, the problem is the actual barristers and staff. There aren't enough. There aren't enough resources for the criminal justice system to operate, thanks to the Tories once again. And this attempt to, let's just get rid of jury trials, will not actually fix the problem. So it'll end up going to magistrates, and magistrates are not going to deliver the type of justice that people deserve. This is a huge concern. So a better solution would be, of course, to invest better in the criminal justice system to make sure that there are enough trials taking place. There are courthouses that are falling apart. Once again, the legacy of the Conservatives. The problem here stems from the Tories, but the solution cannot be to deny people justice. Tories blasted legal aid. Yeah, because they don't need it. It's like, we can pay our own lawyers. Why should we spend money on poor people or people who are not able to access the legal system? Trump preaches being human in the mirror. I wish that human in the mirror would respond with something critical. The only person free from Trump's criticism is Putin. Exactly. Putin is the only one he's still flavor of the month. And it's got so bad that it seems the Russians were giving away information to the Iranians about American troop movements. And what was the response? Well, the Americans decided what we're going to do is we're going to bring on the Ukrainians. We're going to use their highly skilled drone operators to try and take down some of these drones. And Trump didn't even thank them. He didn't even acknowledge them. He said, yeah, we're doing a great job. We are doing a great job of taking down these drones. When in reality, it was the help that the Americans were receiving. So the Americans were receiving help from the Ukrainians to bring down drones that the Iranians were firing at the Americans with the help of the Russians who were giving them information. Oh God. I apologize for using the B word earlier, but I could not apologize for using the C word when describing animals like Trump, Hetzef, and Miller. They are despicable human beings. Are they even human? That's the question I have to ask. Let me just go off on a small tangent for a moment. It reminded me, when I look at people like Trump and Hetzef and Stephen Miller and people like that, it reminds me somewhat of Boris Johnson. And I remember this story. I don't know if this story is true or not. I mentioned it before on the live stream or in videos. There's a story that Boris Johnson burnt a £50 note or a £20 note in front of a homeless person in order to get into an exclusive club. That was the rite of passage. You had to burn a £50 or £20 note in front of a homeless person in order to do that. Now, when I first heard that story, I was like, okay, is it real or not? But we're talking about Boris Johnson here, so it's probably true. But let's say, for the sake of argument, it is true. Would you associate with somebody who did that? If I discovered a friend of mine said, hey, you know what I did last night? Well, I got into this club. And I said, ooh, how did you get into that club? I thought it was really exclusive. And they said, oh, I had to burn a £50 note in front of a homeless person. I'd be like, okay, goodbye. I don't want anything to do with you. And I could never... The Bullington Club. Thanks, Harry. If it was my friend, I wouldn't want to be friends with this person anymore because it opened my eyes and this is not somebody I want to associate with. And then I asked myself, how could you marry somebody like that? If you knew, like if you had married somebody and then discovered that they were doing this, I think it would be pretty horrible for the relationship. But Boris Johnson has been married a number of times. So what does it say about the people who marry Boris, like they fall in love with Boris Johnson knowing that he burnt a £50 note in front of a homeless person? Well, what does it say about Boris Johnson, but also what does it say about the individual who's associating themselves with Boris Johnson? Enough of that for a moment. Let's get back. Pete Hogsbreath. He likes his whiskey. Yes, Max. Like the Sports Direct bloke waving notes in front of unpaid staff. Like what does it say about you? Just pure scum when you do that. You know that you're in a position where you have power over somebody, and you have nothing but contempt for your fellow man. Because any of us could end up in a situation where we end up having an accident and we lose our job, or we lose our home. It could be an accident. It could be something you do yourself. It could be something that happens to you. Any of us could have a situation where we end up out on the street. And I hate for anyone I care about, to be in a situation where there's some effing idiot comes up and burns a £50 note in front of them, or somebody who's lost their job through no fault of their own, having their boss wave money in front of them. I don't know. It makes me angry. Let me just put it that way. Don't put that picture in my head, Max. I'm sorry. Not only that, but each of the wives was someone who he cheated on previously. On the previous wife. Yeah, was it Carrie, the latest one? She had cheated on her husband, or he had cheated on his wife with her. It's just layers and layers of filth. That's what these people are. Yeah, and then they're the ones who were like, yeah, well, we need to go after the poor people because they're lazy or because they're gaming the system. And then these people are just, I don't know. And of course, they're propped up by the right-wing media. Like, remember when Boris Johnson was lying to Parliament, and the response from the Daily Mail and everything was like, it was just a piece of cake. He was just having a piece of cake. He was just having a party. Are you trying to deny Boris a party? Eating gits, laughing at Jarrow Martyrs. PMQs tomorrow could be interesting. I think, yeah, it's a good first change. It could be interesting. A bit more on the jury trials, because I think this is really important, because taking away this could deny people right to justice.
Imposing from the outside, Snaresbrook in East London, where justice is handed down for the capital's most serious crimes, the emblem of a broken system. But can this government fix it?
Laziness, sticking plaster politics. Labour MPs like me are sick to the back teeth.
Ministers want to roll back the rights of those in the dock and must face down the legal system.
The right that every citizen of this country enjoys is the right to a fair trial, not the right to a jury trial.
But what's the mandate or the proof it'll work?
Judges have quite enough power. It won't cure the backlog, and we need rather more urgent action.
Find out what's happening on the ground, get your finger out and get the system mended.
I love that guy. I love that MP. Get your finger out. But he's right. The problem here is the criminal justice system, the way that it's been left to fall apart. Not the solution cannot be getting rid of jury trials, because you're denying people. And I think this is going to come to bite the government in the backside later on, because there will be sometime down the road the Supreme Court will say, actually, somebody will take a case to the Supreme Court and they said this was wrong. And then the government will end up having to pay compensation to people who were denied a trial, because some people may end up going to jail wrongly, perhaps. And if there had been a jury trial, they would have been acquitted or found not guilty, I should say. MP Charlotte Nichols said she waited 1,088 days for her case to get to court. It's insane. Like this, when you watch TV, you watch TV shows about crime and stuff like that. A crime is committed, and then it's almost like a week later the case goes to trial. And when in reality, 1,000 days. What's that, like 4 years almost? Like 4 years. When you're... And what's there... People want justice straight away. Of course, if it's not an open and shut case, that's a different thing. But this is not because of the complexity of the case. This is about the delays, because maybe there weren't staff available, because of administrative problems. All of these things, because there aren't the staff there to do the work. There aren't the barristers available to study the case, and then it gets dragged on and then there isn't a judge available to look at it, to have a hearing. All of these things, because the Tories, and once again, it's the Tories had decided we're going to cut everything to the bone. The same when it comes to defence. Many of these ships that the Tories keep talking about, we need to send out more ships. They don't have sailors on them. They don't have enough sailors. There's no point having an aircraft carrier if there's no one to be on it. And there aren't enough people because the Tories decided we're going to cut back on the size of the armed forces to save money. To save money so we can hand more money to our rich donors and friends. The whole idea is to speed up cases by Labour. But is it going to speed up? Because the problem, it seems, is not the actual... The problem is that it's not going to speed up cases because there isn't the infrastructure to facilitate the speed up. So just removing jury trials, yes, that would in some cases speed up part of it. But if the entire system is broken, then I don't think it's actually going to do well in speeding things up. I'm not disagreeing with you, Reagan Elite. I think from what I've heard, the problems are much more profound than just jury trials. She said the man she accused had been acquitted after a criminal trial. The last government cut 36,000 active sailors. 36,000. Once again, if you have the ships but you don't have the sailors, who's going to go on? You can't sail the ship without a full crew. The experts in this have said this won't work. Because if it doesn't work, then you're denying people access to justice, and you're also denying other people justice. You would think that Starmer would have a good insight into this with his background. The problem with Starmer is that Starmer is not in control. That's the problem. It's the Blue Labour people. It's the Morgan McSweeney people. Morgan McSweeney is gone, but his people are still there. They're the ones who are pushing this. You know, it's not... Starmer is just a placeholder. You know, that's the problem here. But I don't think Starmer would have gone along with a lot of these things. But he was, once again, he was put in the driver's seat and told this is the way you need to go. So I think this is really important. Starmer is basically a placeholder prime minister. He's not there making decisions for himself or for the party. Because if you think about, we keep coming back to this point, why would Starmer do this? Why would Starmer do that? He's a human rights lawyer. Why would he, like, for example, the so-called, the Island of Strangers speech, that's not something a human rights lawyer would read out because it was given to him. He's just there to fill a slot. So of course he's going to make decisions that make no sense whatsoever from a Labour Prime Minister's point of view. Is the military funded properly now? Can they get all the stuff they need? No, they're not. Like, the problem is there's a lack of staff, so there aren't the troops, sailors, or Air Force staff. There's a money issue as well, and then the approach has been built on, okay, we need to invest in heavy equipment because it's something that's flashy, but in reality a lot more has to go into something like stuff like cyber defense or different types of weapons like drones. For example, if you say, okay, back in the early 2010s, what we need to do is we need to build hundreds of tanks. So that money was put aside, contracts were given to producers, and all of this was working towards building tanks. But now tanks are not really something that you need to be investing in. It needs to be something like drones or drone technology or autonomous technology. So it's very difficult to switch over to that, especially as the MOD is limited in the funds it has. Was depleted during condemns during the Tories the Tories austerity. Manchurian Candidate, a bit like that, yes. He's not really there to make decisions for himself. He's there to make decisions for others, and he's not been pushed around by the party. He's been pushed around by people in Number 10, and there is a sort of bunker mentality, it seems, in Number 10. March the troops to the top of the hill, and then we realize actually this is not a good policy, and march them back down again, or it's not a popular policy, then march them down again. And that's why you have MPs who are being abused on the doorstep, because people are, why are you voting for policies that are against the interests of ordinary people? And why aren't you talking? This is another problem, that they're not talking about what they're doing good, the good stuff, like, for example, increasing the minimum wage or improving worker rights or dealing with the housing crisis. They are doing some good work, but you never hear about it because the Morgan McSweeney wing just want to talk about immigration. I read somewhere that the Irish military is getting new equipment at some point. Yeah, they are, but it's like in Ireland there is the issue of neutralities, which is really strong. There is a lot of resistance to military spending. So even a little bit of military spending, and Ireland spends 0.6%, I think, of GDP on the military. So while the UK spends about 2 or 3%, or working towards 3%, Ireland spends less than 0%, like 0.6% or 0.5%. So it's very, very little of GDP goes on the military. And any talk of increasing military spending in Ireland is frowned upon. Now, maybe that's changing somewhat, but not at the moment anyway. Not in any great way. I need to see when the adaptive ski group is there first. and build up confidence. Not sure what that's about. Comments out of context. I read somewhere, they don't have the staff or the money to build up the ships and weapons. Brexit is part of the problem because you need to get access to equipment, which can be delayed or can be more expensive, which can eat into the budget. But a lot of the stuff is produced in the UK, so it's not all down to Brexit. But of course, a lot of it is down to, well, we need the staff, and it's difficult to find the staff. Max, you got a lot of talent there. A lot of talent here on the stream. Anyway, guys, let's move on. A story I wanted to cover, and I think this is something that some of you will like to hear about, or maybe not, is, of course, AI. And finally, someone in the House of Commons was talking about AI and how it's going to impact jobs.
AI is also an increasing concern. When I've spoken to businesses, they're concerned about the number of people they won't be employing in the future. The Minister's hinted at this, the government's looking at this systemically. What conversations is he having across government and crucially with businesses so that we can plan for what could be a real crisis in the future?
First. Well, I thank the honourable friend for her question. She's been rightly raising this issue for some time, actually predating the election. To take two parts of her question in turn, directly on the question of the impact of AI, this is a question being looked at across countries. There is a unit inside the government looking at exactly that, but more importantly, on the crisis happening now to some young people who are not able to get the job opportunities we all want them to have and haven't been now for some time. We will be coming forward with further measures to strengthen that youth guarantee that she's rightly mentioned. This is a really important measure to increase the employment support available to our young people and to make sure that a job guarantee is there for those that are long-term unemployed.
AI.
Okay, but AI is taking people's jobs. There's no point. Yeah, what we need to do is help young people into jobs. AI is taking people. Now, okay, let me be very clear about this. It's not the case that people are walking into their jobs and being told, hey, your job is gone because of AI. It's instead what we're seeing is companies are relying on existing staff to be more productive using AI. So instead of hiring junior staff, entry staff, what they're doing is they're saying, well, let's hold off on entry staff and we're going to give our existing staff these AI tools to make them more productive. And as they're more productive, our companies are growing. And in a sense, AI will create jobs. So for example, if a company is expanding, maybe they need to ship more goods, so they're able to rely on couriers or whatever, or logistics companies to ship these goods. So there will be a small rise in the number of jobs available in an indirect way as a result of AI. But what we're seeing is, if there's a company who's able to use AI, they are going to succeed. If a company is not using AI, they're going to be left behind. So they're not going to be as productive. And if you think about it, a situation like this, where you have, I don't know, two software companies offering software to a company, and one of them is using AI and the other is not. The one who's using AI will be much more productive. They'll be able to use agents, or they'll use software tools to be able to create better software. And they'll be able to create software on the fly for their customer. If the customer says, hey, we need this requirement, yeah, we can have it done by the end of the day. While the traditional software company would need to meet with the customer and come to some sort of agreement with them on what they would offer. And that takes time and it's more expensive. So I think we're going to see more and more companies who are relying on AI doing better than the ones who are not. And of course, when it comes to young people, it's going to be more and more difficult for them because a lot of them need to come in at the low end of the market, the low end of the economics, the employment scale, where they start out in their career. Those jobs are being closed off, not because these jobs are gone. It's just that the existing staff, we're starting to see the existing staff rely more on using AI tools to get the job done. So where you would have a senior developer and a junior developer, well, the junior developer is being left behind, is being ignored, and the senior developer is getting the AI to do a lot of the work of the junior developer. So junior developers are going to struggle to get jobs. And the government need to have a plan B. Because I have to say here, the problem is not AI. The problem is governments not having a plan B. And what plan B are there? Well, there's one plan B is, of course, a universal basic income. We need to start talking about this. Governments don't want to talk about it. And I think the reason why governments don't want to talk about it is because it's radical. And governments don't like radical ideas. They like incremental changes. They want a little change here, a little change there. But a UBI would be a complete and utter change. UBI has already been somewhat implemented in Ireland, but it's for musicians, for example. So musicians are going to get a minimum wage. I think it's about 300 euros per week to cover the cost of living. So that's like a UBI, and it's just for musicians, but it needs to be extended to everyone. And there are issues about how to pay for it, who would pay for it. But we're going to see a massive amount of productivity over the next number of years as a result of AI, because instead of having two people do a job, one person can do the job with an AI tool and do maybe the work of 3 or 4 other people at the same time. There's going to be a lot of pressure. And guys, I don't know if in your line of work, if you've been asked by your boss to start using and continue using AI tools. A lot of people have said that they have. Humans want to be productive. People want to be productive. And this is going to create social issues as well. If people don't have jobs, they're going to, okay, what do we do? If the AI is doing all the work, and we're going to first see white collar jobs disappear. So people who work in call centers, people who work in data analysis, people who data entry, any sort of job with a computer on its own, just working with a computer, is going to be handed over to AIs pretty soon. It's the blue collar work that will come later. Some jobs may never be outsourced to AI. But I think governments need to start taking this more seriously and not just sugar-coated with, don't worry, everyone will be provided a job and we're going to get young people into the workplace. No. There's been a massive drop in employment for young people. Some of this is directly related to AI. Some of it is a lack of investment. There's also another issue when it comes to AI is investment that would normally go to hiring staff. That investment is being pumped into AI. So it's not like the AI is taking your job. It's your boss is redirecting the money that they would normally pay you into buying up hardware, buying up cloud services, because they want to keep ahead of the game. So they understand the future is not software as a service, but AI software as a service. And companies like Amazon are now cutting back on staff. Not, if you look at the stories, it's not staff like drivers or couriers or people working in warehouses. It's actually the white collar staff. It's the people who work in offices, because they're able to redirect that money into investment in AI, in technologies, in software, in chips, stuff like that. So we need to have a plan B. And one plan B is, of course, the universal basic income, where we give everyone a minimum amount of money to live. Now, there's also other talk of a universal high income, which would cover everyone's, would not be a basic level, but it would be a significant high level income, which would give people a high quality of life, but they would never have to work. But how is that going to be paid for? It could be paid through increased productivity as a result of AI. So companies are taxed more to cover these costs. But if the companies move their operations to low taxation places, then they're going to avoid having to do that. And then people are going to have to find another way to live. But governments need to sort this out now, because it's already beginning. Max Singh must fill the chat on Friday. Well, is it someone's birthday on Friday? Some studies have shown that AI actually makes developers 11% less productive due to fixing all of the bugs it creates. Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of this is down to intention. So a big problem with the AI is that it's, in a sense, it's stupid. Not in the stupid sense that we would normally consider stupid, but a problem with AI is that if you ask it to do something and you don't give your intentions clearly, it will give you something. But what it'll do is it'll end up making a lot of mistakes or hallucinations. So what's happening, it seems, within these AI tools, these large language models, is that they've been told, I need to provide an answer. But if they can't find an answer, they will give you any answer. And that's not what you want. And this is where you end up having lots of bugs or lots of mistakes or lots of problems. So what there needs to be a focus on for people who use AI is more on the intention. Okay, what do I want this AI to achieve? So I need to invest more in providing it with the correct prompt or the correct question in order to get a better answer. So just giving it a random, vague prompt, you're going to end up with garbage. So you need to actually invest more in what you actually want it to achieve. You need to invest time and effort, because if you do, then it's less likely to make these mistakes. Max, I turned 40 on Friday. Oh, then I'll have to wish you a happy birthday on Friday. On Friday, I'm not going to do it. Don't want to bring bad luck. Wishing you before. Max, are you going to sing happy birthday to NF? NF? I thought it was Calvin Lad. I'll wish happy birthday. I'll sing happy birthday to anyone who wants. But remember, if I am singing, I'll give you a warning beforehand so you can stick your fingers in your ears. What 40 for the first time? I liked 29. I intended to stick to that. Me too. When I was 20, I was like, I can't imagine being 40. Oh, those were the days. So guys, as you can imagine, I'm a bit more than 40 now. So guys, I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats. Greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone who smashed the like button. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. If you're on Discord, I'm on the pre-stream chat, so do check that out on Friday, about an hour before the live stream I'll be on, if all is fine. And then we can have a bit of a chat before the live stream to talk about what's the big story of the day. So do consider doing that if you're on Discord. And if you're not, I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. But before we go, of course, I want to show you this funny clip before we finish for tonight.
It must be a plan of some sort, laid out before.
A plan. A plan. Right, I see what you're talking about. A plan for Iran.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, I've got it here, in fact.
Right.
There it is.
That's just a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah, I got it from the draw-marked Plan for Iraq 2003. It's in the Plan for Libya cupboard. In the Plan for Afghanistan office on Plan for Vietnam Street.
Well, anyway, Bob, there must be a plan of...
So guys, have a great week. I will see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.